Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
I'm that Matt kid.
I'm a geek for fun.
And I'm just here.
No, you're more than just here. You're a vital part of the show. There's always something missing when you're gone. It's usually hot takes and sad energy, but it's something that's missing.
The energy vampire.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
that is so Steve. He is an energy vampire. Oh my God. The truth comes out. On this episode of Geeky Gentlemen, the thumbnail's going to be all like, Truth revealed. Steve Baxy's secret he doesn't want you to know.
Stop it. That's a very misleading title.
Oh man.
I don't know, man. It happened in the first, minute of the video. I think it counts.
That's fair.
Anyway. So what are we talking about today, gentlemen?
Well, today I thought it would be interesting to talk about. Tim Drake was just Tim Drake, Robin number 3 was just revealed to have an interest in other guys, so potentially bisexual, but at the very least, exploring things. And that has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because Tim is a character who, it's never really been explicitly stated, but, like with a lot of things, we just kind of go to straightness as the default. So he's a character who was assumed to be straight for his entire several decade history and is now shown explicitly not being that way. And so that just kind of made me think about the idea of taking characters, and I don't want to say necessarily changing their sexuality, but at least cementing their sexuality as something other than what, people expected. And really just taking characters and making changes to their identity in some way, be it their sexual orientation or their, their race or something like that. Circumstances where that's been done, maybe why it ruffles people's feathers so much, not necessarily trying to play devil's advocate, but at least kind of taking a look at why that gets people so riled up. And maybe if there are situations where it feels like it wasn't done out of a desire for representation or because that was what was best for the character, if there are any situations where it does feel like this was just something that was done for the sake of it, and whether or not that warrants criticism or not. So it's just kind of the broad topic, but I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, so I wanted to go into it.
Yeah, Tim Drake's the funniest example of this, because, for at least the last 15 to 20 years of his 30-year history, people have been constantly headcanoning him as gay. Particularly with Connor Kent, but just in general, there's a lot of stuff that's that has Tim as or portrayed as gay. I remember this really funny TikTok from a couple years ago of a guy in a Batman cosplay, and he's like, "Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son?" And he starts describing Tim Drake, and he's like, "Clearly gay, but we haven't had the talk yet." And I'm like, that is such a it's such a good point, because Tim Drake's just a character that's been interpreted by his fan base mostly as gay, and it's funny that it comes out in the comics, it finally gets adapted in the proper medium, in the official media, and now it's a huge stink. And always, like any of those reaction tubers that get ultra pissed off about the changes to these characters, I tend to kind of think, oh, they don't actually give a fuck. They're just doing it because they know it'll generate views. But certainly it generates views because somebody's mad about it. And whenever that happens, I just kind of wonder, like, who's really that attached to Tim Drake's straightness? Like, it's funny I say this because Alfie, Steve, and I are in a group chat with someone who's a huge Tim Steph fan, and God, that is the most boring fucking relationship in the world. Like, I hate to just shit on things that people like and take comfort in. I mean, I don't hate it. I live for it, but I know I should feel bad, so that's kind of like progress. I hate to shit on stuff like that, but honestly, just every time I've read anything to do with Cass, or not Cass, with Steph and Tim, I just roll my eyes at it. And so it's one of those things where I think the logical thing and where the outrage of a choice like this comes from, you just have to accept that it's homophobia. And not necessarily like bigotry, if that makes sense, like that distinction between straight out I hate gay people kind of bigotry and gay things make me uncomfortable because of internalized homophobia from a like societal standpoint. I think it fundamentally it comes down to that more internalized thing most of the time, if not drifting further and closer to out and out bigotry. That's like, it's hard not to just say that. But I do like what you brought up, Matt, and obviously we can talk about the Tim Drake thing, but I do want to transition after the other guys get their thoughts out on that, to talk about, are there times where choices like this of retroactively making a change to the character's identity in a significant way, like changing their race, sexual orientation, background, things like that, are there times where it is completely and totally just a marketing ploy or just done to generate controversy? But before we get into that, Alfie and Steve, your thoughts on the Tim Drake revelation that shocked a generation of Tim Drake fans to their core?
I think the thing about it that kind of has most taken me by surprise, which I guess it really should have, is just the reach it's had. Because just the other day, I had my mom mention it. I was like, what? It was like, oh yeah, did you know Robin came out as gay? I was just like, that, because my mom is like, she doesn't even know the difference between Marvel and DC, and she definitely is people like that. So like, that says to me, okay, so this is like, really reached into the mainstream as just a thing that's on the news, as just a thing that people outside of any nerd sphere or anything will be hearing about, which very rarely happens unless it's something big like this, which I think is why a lot of fans had kind of resided themselves to the Tim being gay thing. I think a lot of writers as well. Like, I know James Tynion has admitted this, and a couple other people say, we write Tim as gay without showing that, because we kind of, DC is never going to let us have Robin be gay, because even if he's not Dick Grayson, even if he's not the current Robin, he still is that, and the moment that hits the press is that's all the press is going to be talking about, is Robin from Batman is gay, which was kind of like it's been like a joke that people have thrown at like the Robin character really since his creation, since the Warhol days. Whereas like a sign like Batman's creepy or something like that, which again is itself rooted in homophobia and things against comics and stuff like that. So the fact that this has had just the sign off it did, and was kind of put in, like, this wasn't in like a main Batman title, this was in Batman Urban Legends, in like the back of issue, like in the side, like little thing, just as a random throwaway thing, with not really any fanfare for it, really kind of struck me because we can go into this to Ian's question about like when this is done for publicity and stuff, is because they have tried to do stuff like this for like those big issue sellers. The fact that this was done so offhandedly with no build up or
you almost feel like it snuck through editorial or something, right?
Yeah, like, it kind of feels like, but also I guess I kind of makes it feel more legit. Like it feels more like a choice made by the writers that wasn't pushed on them to make. Because if it was pushed on them, this would have happened in like Scarecrow, Fear State, Number Omega, or something like that. You know, like it would have been one of the issues people want them to buy. So yeah, that's what struck me most. Because again, you've already said before, Tim Drake's always been gay or bisexual. It's like he's never had a convincing girlfriend in his entire life. Like the most chemistry he does have is with Superboy. Even if it's intentional or not, it's just he is a character of how he's written. He's written like a gay teen. Like that's just how he is. I don't know. At the moment, we're going with bisexual and stuff like that. I would be shocked if we don't just transition to him just fully adopting being gay rather than being bi. Not like there's something about being wrong with being bi or anything. I just think that's more the direction that they go with him, especially because there was rumors with 5G about Apollo and Midnight, who are the gay kind of pastiches for Superman and Batman, who are the Authority. That the original plan was for Connor and Tim to adopt those identities and become the new Apollo and Midnight. And I feel like that, if that's kind of been talk circulating and stuff like that, those aren't bi characters, those are straight gay characters.
Straight gay characters,
I know,
yes.
right?
All the straight gays.
very
overlooked minority, the straight gays.
There we have it. But yeah, so I think it will just be a matter of time before we get like the official like Tim saying what he is. I don't think we'll be bi. I think we'll be gay. But at the same time, whatever it is, I think it is a really important move that DC did this. And for all the people it's made angry, I saw a lot of heartwarming posts of like people who were like really like close friends of us and everything, who were like, Tim Drake is came out around the same time as me, like that kind of thing. I think that's really he's the biggest character this has ever happened to, just for the fact that he was Robin, he is Robin. It's only behind Superman and Batman really in popularity. I think this is kind of the biggest step we've ever seen with this, and that's mainly my harping on point.
All right, Steve, Tim Drake's your boy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much more to say aside from that, just because I feel like you read Tim Drake comics and you kind of always should have known this or have had the inclination for this. Like, it's not one of those situations where... So compare this to like Alan Scott being gay in the New 52 Earth 2 book by James Robinson. Like, Alan Scott comics don't have that vibe to them, and they very much are like in that style of old school male adventurers that are like deeply in your face heterosexual. And so Alan Scott becoming gay kind of felt like a left field thing because he wanted to do something different. And so that's a creative choice you kind of have to justify and give stories for and yada yada yada. I don't know anyone around my age that likes Tim Drake as much as I do that hasn't already had this thought or has considered this thought. Tinian, like Alfie said, has basically been writing him this way all the way through. I know Scott Snyder has gone on record to say something similar to that. Like, everyone, it's one of those things where, like, it's been in the subconscious of it for so long that it's almost not surprising. It's, in fact, more surprising that it took this long, if anything. But it's nice, and I'm happy for him. I was joking with you guys about this before, but I love that now anytime someone makes fun of Tim Drake for being boring and basic and white, I can just be like, nah, you're just homophobic. Because it happens so much. But I like it. My biggest problem with it is the story it happens in just isn't very good. Like, Urban Legends has been kind of hit and miss anyway. Like, the Chip Zdarsky Reddit story's been pretty good. The Matthew Rosenberg Grifter story sucks because we really gotta stop trying to make Grifter a thing. No one gives a shit about Grifter. And then we had like some one-offs here and there. And this was like a weird 3-part. Tim has this new friend all of a sudden that you've never met before. Oh no, his friend's been kidnapped, and Tim doesn't understand why he feels the need to save him. Never minding the fact that he's been a superhero since he was 9 years old. And then discovers he's gay because he saved a dude he would have saved anyway. I don't know. It's a really weird way to tell that story. And it's one of those things where we do this a lot, where it seems like the character's identity is very much dictated by things external to them. And so you don't actually... there's not a lot in that story where you're like understanding Tim come to terms with this, or Tim like sitting there and reflecting on it and coming out as like an open choice. It feels a lot more just like the universe around him has conspired to make him feel this way, and he just leans into it. It's very odd. It's not a particularly good story, and there's more of it coming in October apparently. And it is only like a backup feature. It's only like 5 pages per issue for 3 issues. So there really is not much that could have happened. But if I had to change anything about the coming out, it would have just been like, at least make it a story that's worth remembering aside from 2 panels.
Nah, it's Tim Drake. That's kind of like all he has is just stories that aren't really worth remembering aside from 2 panels.
Yeah,
My
it's
only
weird
base
how that
dying.
happened to him for an entire 200 issue ongoing.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's
like, sorry.
Oh no, it is funny to me because like I am not like the world's biggest Tim Drake stan or anything. Like I don't have the history with the character, but like those are situations where I'll kind of step back and be quiet and listen to the people who do know their shit and who have been reading Tim Drake for a long time, and it's like every single fucking one of them is just like, oh yeah, shit, no, we've been knew that Tim is gay for like ever. But then you'll go to like, you'll see like random chuds on Reddit and Twitter being like, oh, this is completely out of the blue and this makes no sense. And it's just like, it's one of those things where you don't want to accuse people of just straight up being bad at comprehending fiction or just having bad faith in their arguments. But it's also just like I mean, you know, subconscious bias is a very powerful thing. If you don't really let yourself be open to the idea that a character might not be straight, then even obvious subtext can go over your head. So it's seeing the mix of reactions to it has been absolutely fascinating, and I'm definitely in agreement that it's a great thing that's happened, and I'm super happy for Tim and all of Tim's fans who can accuse all their haters of being homophobic. I think that's always great when that happens. So I'm generally positive on it and very happy for it happening.
I mean, okay, so just to interject real quick. In all fairness to the people who do think this is out of left field, I'm not a Tim Drake stan. I'm the internet's biggest Tim Drake hater. Honestly, I don't really care. It's just it's for the meme. It's so much fun to just dunk on Tim Drake. But regardless, like I've read Batman comics, and I read Batman comics with Tim Drake as Robin in them for years. And the first time I ever heard someone tell me, oh yeah, Batman or Robin and Superboy, super gay, I was like, wait, what? Huh? Did I miss something? Like I flipped back through some things. I never picked up on it until someone mentioned it to me, and then just forever after that, anytime I read Tim Drake and anything, I was like, oh yeah, oh well, he's got a girlfriend here. And his girlfriend says, you got a bad case of the Stephs. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like something anyone should have. And I don't feel comfortable with you being with this monster, Tim. Go be with your boyfriend. So like, no, but in all honesty, like I didn't know that context, and I didn't ever read into it. Remember a tweet from a couple months back that like severely underappreciated point, which is a lot of people would be so much happier making OCs as opposed to grafting things onto pre-existing characters and reading into things that aren't necessarily there. And you know what? It's a very good point. And so I think you could maybe make that argument with some characters. I think you could have, before this issue at least, made that argument with the homosexual interpretation of Tim Drake, given that it was vague and the writers never really had the balls to show it. I don't care how you intend to write the character, show your shit or get the fuck out. Tends to be some of my take when it comes to things like this. Because then it leaves the door too open to that fucking J.K. Rowling, oh yeah, Dumbledore was gay the whole time bullshit. It's like, oh yeah, see, I got representation in my stories. He's so gay you didn't know the whole time. But, I mean, alright, so, like, this is a good point to transition back to the other thing. I worked with a guy for, like, 2 years. And I'm not going to say his name or anything because he recently got fired, so I don't want to badmouth him or anything like that. But, like, worked with him for 2 years at my current job. And this is going to sound awkward. We were having a conversation about glory holes in the production room.
Of course.
Nice.
Like
As
you
you
do
do
at your work. And I just kind of, offhandedly was like, man, I don't get that one. Like you go in there and you just put it through and you just really hope the other person on the other side's going to be into it too. Like, that seems like a big risk. And he pipes up and he goes, well, the reason for it is because gay sex used to be something that could come with the death penalty, so the community had to find ways to practice intercourse without, being able to identify each other, and I'm like, oh, huh, I guess I didn't know that. And I looked at him like, why do you know so much about glory holes? And he didn't even say it, someone else said, it's because he's gay. And I'm like, oh, huh, 2 years working with this guy, talking to him pretty regularly, never picked up on that. Knew he was a huge Power Rangers fan, never knew that he was gay. Regardless of all that, the point I'm trying to make here is it is certainly possible to write a character as homosexual, and of course homosexuality, blackness, what have you, of these attributes that are put on characters do not have to define a character. Luke Skywalker does not have to use the power of his gayness to blow up the Death Star.
But he absolutely is gay. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
A way better story. Are you kidding me?
That's true.
Fair. But you don't have to. You don't have to, feature... The gayness of a character does not have to be their personality. It should be something that informs their personality because it is a part of them. Is a completely fair argument. But then it's a fine line, because if you just never show anything and you just say things, post the piece being out there, it's cowardice. And like I said, you get that J.K. Rowling thing. So there's degrees to it. But let's spend some time talking about when are times that, like, these revelations about a character's identity has been done purely for the buzz value of it.
Can I hop in on that one real quick?
Go for it.
So the one, and look, I'll admit, before everyone gets pissed at me and tells me how good of a story it was, I'll admit that I haven't read all of this, but the one that kind of bothered me was Selena. Selena Kyle being bisexual is odd to me, because now we're at a place where Batman's 3 most prominent female rogues are all bisexual, and it's all the ones that are associated with being very like Poison Ivy, Harley, and Selena are all associated with, very heavily being like femme fatales and using their feminine wiles. Harley a little bit less so, but she does make a habit of sleeping with other people besides the Joker, especially like Deadshot and shit like that. And so I'm like, all 3 of them are bi, all 3 of them are super promiscuous, and I feel like it's odd to me that the 3 super promiscuous characters are all also bi, when that is very much like a negative and harmful stereotype against bi people and in the bi community. And considering that Selena's relationship with Bruce is like one of the most important and defining parts of those two characters, that just struck me as like why are we doing this with Selena? So like that's the only one I'm thinking of like immediately, and that's the one that's always bothered me for those reasons. Again, it could have been a really great story, and Selena's girlfriend could have been extremely compelling. I don't know, but that's the one that always kind of stuck out to me that I can remember.
I mean, I'll go with the one I said already, and that's Dumbledore. It's just done completely after the fact. It's said to like inform everything with Dumbledore and Grindelwald that led to the death of Dumbledore's sister. It's like, oh, it's because Dumbledore and Grindelwald were in a relationship together, and that's why the breakup was so horrible. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, maybe, but like, Jesus, could you have put that explicitly in the text and not just said it, years after the book came out? Like, that's to me one that shouts that it was done for buzz as opposed to any kind of narrative reason for the characters.
Yeah, I'm with Matt on the Selena one, because that's really, really weird to me, because I never felt like Selena as a character got much out of that. And the story where it happens in, which is, I think, it's after Joelle Jones' Catwoman run is done, and it's before Rem V takes on the book. And so the book's kind of just meandering, and her and Bruce are at that point they're not married yet, because I think the Tom King run hadn't started. At least I'm thinking of the same run. The Tom King run wasn't there yet, but like there were no future plans for Catwoman at that point. And so the whole book just was kind of meandering, wasn't doing anything. And then Selena has a girlfriend out of nowhere and never seems to come up ever again. And that's really, really odd to me. But if there's one that feels just as kind of out of left field, it's probably going to be Bobby in X-Men when Iceman turns out to be gay. And it's just Jean Grey having a conversation at him, telling him he's gay. That's probably one of the weakest ones I've ever seen.
Which is weird because, like, the X-Men have kind of, when written well, which we know is rare, gotta get my digs in at the X-Men fan base. The X-Men have kind of always supposed to have been, like, the stand-ins for the persecuted minority, whether that be the homosexual crowd or the, insert race here or what have you. That's what, like, the superhero version of that persecuted minority feeling. So you'd think making a character like Bobby Drake gay would work, which is especially funny because probably his most famous piece of media is X2, where they just filmed a coming out scene but made it about being a mutant. Like, that's It's funny that one felt forced then. Maybe it's because the writer just felt it was like, well, I mean, I guess if everyone's gonna act like he's gay anyway, I might as well just do it, and just was really ham-fisted about how to get away with it or something like that, possibly.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, because I do remember that whole sequence of Jean Grey, like forcibly outing him, has only aged badly. It's fucking rough, and I'm totally not against. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen a gay X-Men, and certainly won't be the last. I mean, you had like Ultimate Colossus, and I think at one point they toyed with the idea of Gambit potentially being bi, which could have been cool, but might have also played more into that bi people are really promiscuous stereotype that pops up a lot. But yeah, that has that didn't age well, and it's one of those things where you kind of want to just chalk it up to growing pains of, like, hey, we are trying to depict more queer characters, and taking a character who has never been concretely established as queer and trying to show that they are now grappling with that and that they are coming out. I mean, I guess it is kind of hard to do that in a way that feels really natural with characters that have been around for a very long time, and that's never really been touched on before. So I mean, I certainly understand that there's probably going to be some growing pains in how to approach that. And that one just that's a little rough.
Mm-hmm. Alfie, you got any examples that you were thinking of?
No, that's the thing. Is I really, for the topic, it's just one of those things. I can't put it in any nicer terms. I just do not care. It's one of those things where, like, all the things you mentioned before and stuff is like I understand the reasoning for it, and you're probably right. Like, this was like a thing just for buzz or whatever, but I don't go to these stories for romance of any kind, really, in anything. So it is kind of
God, this again.
So I don't. Whenever a character is like that, I have no feelings one way or the other. Like, just whatever. Like, it is such a. It's kind of fascinating because, like, it is such a, and obviously fucking white heterosexual fucking British man over here, the ultimate colonizer. I don't even have a leg to stand on, even if I wanted to. but like, it is so important to people to have that representation and to be seen like that. So I'm definitely talking from a place of privilege, and like every fucking default, you could change a straight relationship, one of the characters' genders or their sexual identity or what have you, their pronouns, anything, every single day for the next fucking 50 years, and there'd still be a plethora of straight relationships still around in comics, and it wouldn't change a single thing. So, like, that, the overwhelming disparity between it, I guess, is just kind of, obviously what I am is perceived incorrectly as normal, or like the default. So when I go to think maybe that's why it doesn't kind of hit the same way for me and gets out of this, I'm very thrilled for people who do and stuff, but yeah, it's just, I'm not a romance guy. I'm not I don't care about characters' relationships, like, no matter what, and like very rare examples I do. But yeah, it's
well, okay. Well, what if the relationship side of it doesn't do anything? Is there a time where, like, they've changed a character's race, either for like a film or something, where you didn't think it was like a good choice to the character?
No. Or
didn't fit?
I can't think of a single example. I think it's always kind of. I don't think there's a really, outside of some specific examples, like T'Challa, Luke Cage, characters like that, where their race is very intrinsic to the story of the character, what the character's about, what the character's a thing. Outside of those, I kind of think you can have anyone play anyone. Like, it really doesn't matter to me.
The like, changing of characters' races, especially in adaptation, is something that you always see pushback on, and I'm always baffled by it. I mean, like, you get Black Canary, you get like a woman of color to play Black Canary, and it's like nothing about the character changes, because that character's whiteness is not in any way important to who they are as a person. But then you get people who will come at you with this double standard and be like, well, what if T'Challa was played by a white guy? I'm like, well, T'Challa's blackness is important to his character, and it would be very bad if he was suddenly played by a white guy and literally nothing else was changed about him. Like, if you wanted to do like a what if Black Panther was a white guy from Chicago or some shit. But like, if you're just like, oh no, T'Challa,
no, make it worse, make it fucking like Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's like that's such a fucking false equivalency that people always come at you with, and it's it's I mean, I'm sure it's just people coming at it in bad faith and things like that. But at the same time, and I'm not necessarily trying to play devil's advocate for bigots. I like to at least try to think that I can get where certain people are coming from. If you grow up reading a comic and you're like used to a character looking a certain way and having a certain fucking, I guess, vibe to them, and then like they're like, oh, okay, well, Barbara Gordon, as an example, is not going to be like a white redhead. She's going to be, you know, a person of color. I, of course, don't have a problem with that, but if, like, I could at least get that someone is like, you know, that's not what Barbara Gordon looks like in my head, and so that could maybe be disheartening. I mean, again, I'm trying to be as charitable as possible. I'm trying to see both sides of it. I ultimately think that it doesn't fucking matter, but I at least try to understand that that's where they're coming from. But, I mean, a lot of it is just out-and-out bigotry for sure, so it's...
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think of one, and I think Steve might be the one to pipe up and agree with me on this. I don't think it was done to try to like create buzz about, oh, we made this character black when we cast them, but I do think it was done to try to sell the actor over the character, and that would be Deadshot in Suicide Squad, played by Will Smith. I think that was like objectively poor casting for Deadshot.
Yes. Well, that wasn't where I was about to go, but I will give you that one. I don't have a problem with Deadshot being cast as black, but Will Smith is not the actor to play Deadshot in anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's kind of like the line I'm thinking of is like, it's a hard thing to complain about because you end up kind of looping into those guys that will complain about it just because it's a black guy. Mm-hmm. But I'm always willing to like, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what they do, because I mean, fanboys famously eat their words a lot of times when they shit on a casting. Like, there's a lot of times that someone is cast in a role and then they do an amazing job. It's kind of hard to imagine anyone else playing Loki, but when that character was cast, it was just mocking, like, oh, Loki who? Tom Hiddleston who? No one knew who he was, and it was seen as like very poor casting. But then, trying to imagine anyone else playing Loki today, besides the other people that play Loki, the Loki
theories
show.
About playing Loki.
You know what I meant, damn it. Anyway, but like when you have an actor who's pursued for a thing because they have that studio name recognition that is supposedly so important, to the point where they do stuff like not wear the mask that the character is famous for wearing for more than 5 minutes of screen time and yada yada. It does get kind of annoying, and I don't know if I really like the optics of casting Deadshot as a black guy to begin with, of character known for shooting guns all the time. Yeah,
shooting
black
guns
guy
all the time, who is a deadbeat father.
Not the best optics choice.
Called Black Skinhead.
Yeah,
there's something wrong there.
Yeah, not the best choice. Like, obviously, I'm sure African American actors could do it and do it well, do it comic accurate, but I don't know if that's probably not the hill you want to die on, for characters to recast as black. I think that's probably a poor choice.
If we're going to go to race bending, can I go to my example of I think where we changed character to black and it definitively just made them worse?
Who?
Nick Fury.
Knew that was going to come up.
Oh, okay.
Black Nick Fury sucks. I hate Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury. He's so fucking annoying. Ultimate Comics made Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury because it was a joke, and Mark Millar thought it would be funny, and they just made him straight up Samuel L. Jackson to the point where there's an entire scene in that comic where all the characters are sitting there asking who they would cast each other as in a movie with real actor names, and they use names for people that were up for those roles for movies at the time or prior to making that comic. So it was just a gag. it didn't mean anything. And then the Marvel movies cast Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, and Nick Fury's not really acting in any of those movies. He's just Samuel L. Jackson with an eye patch, and he gets very, very little to do, and he gets basically no characterization aside from just being head of the spy organization. Because of that, we kill regular Nick Fury, and we give him his son, who's Nick Fury Jr., who is just Samuel L. Jackson. And we've done effectively nothing interesting with Nick Fury since, because if you just write him as Samuel L. Jackson, you can't get any sincerity out of any of the scenes he's in because he's always putting on a voice. It's definitively the worst case I've ever seen that in. Not because Nick Fury has to be white, but when you change him to just be Samuel L. Jackson, there's nothing to do. It's literally writing yourself into a hole. You're not adding anything to him. You're taking everything away for the sake of a bit.
It's weird too because
wait, if Alfie's gonna pipe up.
Yeah, maybe this is just because, again, nostalgia, maybe, for Ultimate Spider-Man being like my first like big comic runs, but I reread that run quite a lot. They do more in that with Nick Fury, in my opinion, than White Nick Fury ever.
Ultimate Spider-Man Black Nick Fury is just 616 Nick Fury except black.
Yeah, but that's what they did. You're saying that they did. They made him sound. Here's a book that didn't, which was the most popular book from the Ultimate line. So that's why I disagree with your point, Steve. Because I think, yes, the initial pitch started from a gag, but better writers took that and made it work really well. And I think as well,
Bendis made it work well in Ultimate Spider-Man, but I mean, I don't think that's been the case anywhere else. Like, there's the movies, there's the mainstream 616 book, and then there's Ultimates, and then there's Ultimate Spider-Man.
I think it works in the movies as well, because if you think about because in the movies it is like stunt casting, right? But why do we do that with a role like Nick Fury, which, because we're never going to get a Nick Fury Max series, he's always a supporting like exposition character, as that's what he is. That role can be extremely dry because there is nothing there. Like you say, you give that to an actor like Samuel L. Jackson, and somehow he still makes it memorable. Somehow he still makes it a role that becomes like a fan favorite character for a lot of people. So I think you're right. A lot of the times it is bad, but I think the movies and the Ultimate Spider-Man would be examples of thing where like that actually did pay off in a situation. Because if you just did like generic, not even generic because he is a good character, but like regular 616 Nick Fury, and you put him in Iron Man, like the end scene with Welcome to the Avengers Initiative, it just wouldn't hit the same if that's not Samuel L. Jackson. Like that adds an extra layer to it of just like, oh, it's a big name actor as well. It gives it some legitimacy.
No, I don't think that's true. I think the movies don't do much with him at all besides make him Samuel L. Jackson. So you get the Samuel L. Jackson thing in as Nick Fury plays because it's Samuel L. Jackson for the first time, but it also plays because he introduces himself as, I'm Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And like the thing with Nick Fury is that he's not just generic exposition character. That's how he's used in the movies. But the dude actually has a personality and a backstory and various relationships and grudges and insecurities with the other Avengers. And we don't do any of that ever since we made him Samuel L. Jackson.
To be fair,
that's the case of having lack of time. I'm sorry, Matt, you can continue.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. To be fair, I just don't think that the MCU was ever going to dedicate that time to fleshing out Nick Fury. And so,
I mean, I disagree with that because, like, I disagree with that and Steve, because I think my favorite part of Captain Marvel is the Nick Fury stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
minus the eye thing, maybe.
That's fair, but like I don't like outside of like bits and that, like I just don't think the MCU has any plans to like really super hardcore flesh out Nick Fury in the way that they can in the comics. So casting an actor like Samuel L. Jackson, who Alfie's absolutely right, can carry a certain presence. It really makes that character stand out more than what he potentially would have. But that's kind of getting off of the angle of just the effect of having him be played by an actor of a different race. But that is fair because I think the Deadshot example is fair because I do think it is worthwhile talking about. representation versus good representation, and casting a character as black or something like that simply for the actor, like in the case of Deadshot. With Nick Fury, I just don't have the history with him in the comics, but I mean, I am kind of with Alfie on that one, where I feel like Sam Jackson does bring something to that role that makes him feel more than he would have if it was another actor, but I guess we never got to live in the timeline where a different actor played him, so...
Oh, you don't know about the Dustin Hoffman Nick Fury film?
There's a Dustin Hoffman Nick Fury film?
Oh my god, it's the greatest thing on the planet.
That sounds amazing.
It's so good.
Oh, I did not know about that. Well,
oh yeah, man.
There's I was gonna say the kind of, oh my god, oh wow, huh, that's something.
You looking it up? Huh?
Yeah, Jesus, that's something. The other side of it, see, I don't know. That's why I kept this topic kind of broad, because I feel like just individually you can kind of cover a lot of these pretty quickly. But I guess the other side of that is whitewashing characters and things like that, and that's something that we've generally kind of moved past. Although I'm still surprised that we let Nolan get away with whitewashing in the fucking Dark Knight trilogy.
I was the only one that complained about it with Bane.
Dude, fucking
and,
Bane
and
Raish? I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I remember at the time I complained about it with Bane, and everyone was like, nah, but I mean, he's a really good actor. I was like, I guess I'm the weirdo here for wanting a Hispanic actor to play the Hispanic wrestling luchador character. My bad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's come up more recently. I think Nolan really did hit a sweet spot when you just look at the timing of his films.
It was like before really social media took off with like really noticing and paying attention to these kinds of things.
Yeah, and so it got to have the prestige and stuff before people started noticing these things. But I've definitely seen that crop up in conversation around these things more. I think it's Bane is whatever, because his origin is unique in that film. He's really Bane in name only when you get right down to it in that film. So I have less of a problem with it. I think the one that is more openly insulting is Raish. When you really break it down, because they get Ken Watanabe, who is a great actor who could
love Ken Watanabe,
have easily played a really good Ra's al Ghul. You get him in as a misdirect who's killed off in Act 1 just for Liam Neeson to come back and be the real Ra's al Ghul. I'm like, well, shit, I mean, you could have reversed that or something. It's really Ra's al Ghul is white for plot twist when you really get down to it. And again, Liam Neeson, he plays the character well. He plays let me rephrase that. He plays to the script well. I remember hearing people talk about it, up until that point, Liam Neeson had really only been a mentor kind of character actor. That was one of the things he was most known for, is being more of a mentor figure. And then that was one of the first times he played a villain, and when he turns hard, and it is a dramatic reveal, and it works well within the context of the film. But then within the wider context of casting Ra's al fucking Ghul, yeah, it's kind of yeah.
But yeah, that's one of those things where it's certainly not like there weren't people who were sensitive to those things happening in Hollywood, but it was in a time before social media and the people who really started the wave of paying close attention to those things really became as vocal as they did, and I'm glad that I'm glad that we've reached that point. And so it just utterly confounds me that studios still try to get away with shit like ScarJo in Ghost in the Shell. It utterly confounds me.
Or Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One.
Yeah, it utterly confounds me that this still happens. You know what I mean?
Doctor Strange is a good example there, because you mentioned the Tilda Swinton thing. Because Doctor Strange in the comics, when he was being written by Steve Ditko, was Asian and was drawn Asian, and stayed Asian until Stan Lee got his hands on him, and then changed to being white, and he's been white ever since.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Steve Ditko essentially created the entire character of Doctor Strange, gave him his backstory, and gave him his Asian heritage and everything. And Stan Lee has like final name credits on all of these things, so he's the one who comes up with the name Doctor Stephen Strange. And then Stan Lee's the one who decided to make him white. And it got to a point where Steve Ditko's pages were being redrawn to make him white.
No kidding.
Which, I mean, like, okay, so caveat to that, because you run a really fine line of making Steve Ditko sound like the noble one in this. When you look at how he drew them, it's also just as insulting. So
Steve
I'm not.
Ditko was the guy to have an authentic representation of an Asian dude in comics. God forbid, no, but.
Yeah, no, just like I want to add that information.
Be the one who makes him white, and we've just kept him white ever since, even though he wasn't intended to be white.
Yeah, no, and I just want to establish that no one is the good guy in this scenario because, Steve Ditko
Steve
fighting for Asian representation.
Like we're not back to Steve Ditko on anything.
Yeah, no, it's the context of it, because, Stan Lee, oh man, Stan Lee's so bad, cancel Stan Lee for erasing Asian heritage in comics. Oh no, Steve, oof, Steve Ditko, why'd you...
It's just the same way. I know people are really mad that we cast Finn Jones as Iron Fist as a white guy, but, like, you look at those comics... and you cast an Asian dude in the most stereotypical Eastern Master story of all time, and I don't know if that's actually any better.
Yeah, there's times where it's like, I don't know.
I just don't think there's a good choice in either of those cases, so I'm less mad about them.
No, that's fair. It's just, it's funny how awkward it is. Because I can't help but wonder if that was some of Stan Lee's motivation to make him white. It's like, Steve, these are... Oof. Listen, true believer. I just...
because
no,
the
you're right,
movies
though.
coming out, Shang-Chi's another situation like this, where in the comics, Shang-Chi is from that 70s tradition of Bruce Lee ripoffs. So he shows up in the 14th or 15th issue of Master of Kung Fu, and he's the son of Fu Manchu, who is an evil Asian crime boss, and he decides that he wants to rebel against his father, and he goes off and becomes a superhero to fight all of his dad's evil machinations. And Steve Englehart created him in that story, and then left like 2 issues in when he realized how racist and awful it was, because he didn't know the history behind the Fu Manchu. And then Doug Monk came on and basically became the definitive Shang-Chi writer. And it's another one of those things where, like, those comics, for a lot of people, are like this big moment of, like, an Asian character in Marvel doing really well and being part of that heritage. But you look at, like, the actual stories, and they are pretty insulting.
It's funny, because the thing I know Shang-Chi from is, like, 1 or 2 issues of when he shows up in Hudlin's Black Panther, and it's, like... It's just the coolest shit when he does show up, because Hudlin had that talent for just, like, cutting through the bullshit of, like, okay, yeah, this is insulting, but I'm gonna take the cool parts that I like, and he really did fucking sell it, because Shang-Chi shows up, and it's like, oh, but I thought the other guy was, like the Iron Fist, you know? And he goes, I'm the Man of Iron, and he just fucking, like, he gets both fists activated and shit, it's at the same time, it's like, it's really fucking hype, not gonna lie. It's like, yeah. That one. It's like he just fucking shat on fucking Iron Fist right in the middle of the run for no reason, just to throw shade. I gotta respect it, man. Hudlin's Black Panther is a fucking trip. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know, the history of these things, the race changes and then whitewashing the characters, yeah, it is pretty insulting. The excuse that just gets, like, grating and old is, oh, well, we picked the best person for the role. I mean, you could maybe get away with that in voice acting. There's times where I'm like, okay, yeah, you could probably salvage that with voice acting. But like, I don't know, especially when you get like a bad movie and they switch to it, or you get like just a bad performance out of the white actor that's been put in this thing, you're like, man, you just didn't believe in this. You just wanted to pick the white actor because you knew his name better, kind of thing. It always bugs me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to shit on Iron Fist even more, but
Oh no, please.
a news story came out recently about the stunt coordinator on Iron Fist, and he didn't name names, but it was pretty clear who he was talking about with Finn Jones. And he was like, part of the problem with that show is with the exception of like one person, no one on that show wanted to train with stunts at all, which is why the action in that show looks so bad, except for Colleen Wigg, because she was the only one who like actually showed up for stunt training.
Oh my god.
You think about like Finn Jones was the right person for the role, quote unquote. Finn Jones did not have time to show up to do martial arts choreography for his martial arts TV show.
Mm-hmm. You know, that actually reminds me, kind of circling back to the specifically the more like LGBT and like sexuality side of things, but I mean really both of them. There's a bad faith response that bugs the shit out of me anytime something like this happens, be it a character's race being changed in an adaptation, or be it within canon something about that character changing, some part of their identity changing in some way. You always get people who are just like, why do you have to take existing characters and change them to fit this? Why don't you just go make your own new characters? And it's like, do you not think people are doing that? Because they are, and most of them don't get the traction or the popularity to catch on, and therefore aren't really doing a great job of being representation. I mean, how many people might start reading Batman comics because they find out that Tim is bi or gay? And how many people actually know that a character like Constantine is bi? Because, like, who fucking cares about Constantine in, like, the main general public? So it's like, that's always a bad faith response that bothers me, of just like, well, just go make your own characters. It's like, fucking, we do, and no one gives a shit, and you get mad at us anyways, because a lot of times authors will write in a brand new character who is gay, or is black, or is whatever. And people still get pissed about it. And then they don't get to stick around
after the run, and yeah.
So
yeah, no, it's rough.
What do you guys think about that whole thing? I don't know.
It's weird for me because like there are times where I think it's done well, and characters are created to be this. Batwoman comes to mind, Kate Kane, and it works and it functions. It's usually like, I'm trying to think of fully original characters from Big Two that are created and just function as this and aren't like a legacy or adopting a mantle or anything. And nothing's come to my mind right away, which I do think kind of proves your point. Aren't like
Ghostmaker and Harper gay or queer?
Harper Row, I think, is gay.
Harper Row, I think, is gay. I think Ghostmaker is too, and then a couple of the other Tinian creations in his Batman run are non-binary, and I think one of them is bi. But I'll be completely honest with you. The 4 or 5 new characters he created all bleed together because they're all sort of weird fetish creatures, and I can't tell them apart.
Oof. I mean, fair. I haven't read a ton of it, so.
And what is Punchline if not just a weird fetish monstrosity?
Well, you're not wrong.
Now I'm trying to think that, like, it's I think that's to your point, that it's very hard to get a character to take off in this way. By that same token, it's very hard to get a character to take off. Right. Like, when was the last brand new character, not legacy, #1? Was it Naomi? Is that it? Am I like and that took literally the guy that DC had to court over by offering him Superman as, like, to get a character like that. like, it's very hard to just get a character launched these days, especially in Big Two. It's, like, everyone complains about reboots and relaunches and there being like 17,000 Green Lanterns from Earth, but at the same time, people are like allergic to trying new characters, new things. And I mean, I'll admit I'm in that ballpark too. I try not to be, but I fall into it plenty of times. I know that third-party publishers do this a little bit more and play around with these things. But those only have so much success at taking off.
I'm pretty happy with, and I mean, I shit on Tinian a lot, but I also do it because I think he does other things well. But I am pretty happy with the sort of creator-owned comic scene that he's created with other positive representation. Because you look at stuff like Something is Killing the Children, which is like a teen horror comic that actually has good representation and sells really well. You have something like Department of Truth, which is all about right-wing conspiracy nonsense, and its lead character is gay and has a husband, and I think that's like the best-selling creator-owned comic of like the year. Like it's the first issue alone goes for like $600 now and had 6 printings. It did so well. And then Nice House on the Lake I haven't read yet, but I'm told that one's also very similar to those two with representation and stuff, and that one's selling ridiculously well. And so, like, it's nice to see it succeed, but, like, Tinian got there after, like, 10 years of working at DC and being Scott Snyder's protege and getting promoted to the Batman book after just being a fill-in writer. And so you tell people to go out and make their own characters, and then you don't support them when they're small and don't have an audience, and then complain about the people that were small, built an audience, did well for themselves, and actually exercised that power for something positive.
Yeah, no, and it again, I think Matt hit the nail on the head. It is a bad faith argument. It's something that they say because it's the way that they say, why don't you just go write something that I can ignore, and then when it doesn't sell or when it fails or flops, I can say, see, wokeness doesn't sell. Because that's the thing they want to be able to say is like, well, why don't you just go create your own character? Oh, look, this doesn't sell because people don't want to buy your woke character bullshit. Give us Batman, in his cave grumbling for the fifth billionth issue. Which, to be fair, yeah, I also want Batman in his cave grumbling for the 5 billionth issue. Okay, I'm fucking trash and I know it. But no, like, it's a tough dynamic. Yeah, no, it's really disappointing that, like, I'm kind of mad at myself for not being able to think of new characters that have done this, because I feel like there have to be more, but it is far and few between, which is disappointing. So no, I'm always, to a degree, I'm always supportive of it. Like, sometimes I'm supportive of it just to spite others, because I don't give a fuck about, like, fucking, literally, I don't give a fuck about Tim Drake. Good, he's gay. Finally, something interesting. It only took 30 years. Like, I'm kind of like that with a lot of things. I'm like, oh, you're gonna make Alan Scott gay? Oh no, something interesting. It only took 70 years. And I actually kind of like the direction that has been gone with for Alan Scott in recent years. I never read Earth 2, but that was kind of its own thing. Kind of like the direction that they've gone with Alan Scott recently, which is he's gay, but he didn't like feel comfortable coming out until he's an old man and he's already had kids. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a very real thing. It's a great thing to be bringing up in the modern day. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that direction a lot more than just making Alan Scott, basic Green Lantern, and also he's gay now. I think that's a much more interesting thing to do with
that.
Him.
Was an interesting one, because I remember when that first happened, like, it almost came across to me, the, like, Green Lantern person who knows nothing about it, as like, oh, this way we can say we have a Green Lantern who's gay and not have it be any of the ones that we actually need to sell books. But then you look at it and you're like, well, I mean, no, I mean that happens. Like, people go through that. That is a thing that happens. So I mean, you know, they kind of got to have their cake and eat it too with that one, I guess.
I mean, like, it's funny because he's recently played this in the fucking Netflix series Grace and Frankie, where fucking Martin Sheen plays a man who is, you know, in his senior years and comes out as gay and yada yada. It's had an affair with his law firm partner for fucking decades. But of course we don't focus on that. That would be the interesting story. We instead focus on Jane Fonda being bitchy. But anyway, like, now I just, after that and then the revelation about Alan Scott, I'm like, man, can fucking Martin Sheen play live action Alan Scott? Like, can we do this? This would be fucking hype. Like, I would finally care about Alan Scott the one time, as long as, like, for the record, the reason I don't like Alan Scott is I can never properly respect someone who'd get their ass kicked by someone wearing a pair of clogs. I can't. Like, I mentally cannot make that jump. That's all I got.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, like, would you guys still respect me if I told you I got beat up by someone wearing some clogs?
Ian,
I
we
don't
don't
respect you now.
I mean, if they took the
good,
clogs
good.
off and hit you with them.
Thanks, Alfie.
I do have one other place I wanted to go, and that would kind of be like, as far as I'm good on this topic, that's all I would have to say.
Yeah, fair.
But so one of my problems is I have a pretty stock answer to this thing, which is just like, you make a character a different race or a different gender or a different sexuality. I don't care as long as it's good and it's a story worth reading. But I feel like in the quote-unquote discourse, we've conflated telling stories about people's experiences with the shipping community, and it just gets really tiresome really fast, and at times counterintuitive or counterproductive. Like, after Tim came out, and there were a bunch of people who were like, so when's he hooking up with Nightwing?
Ew.
Yeah, that's just not even a failure to read the room. That's just a failure to read. And so there is this problem that I have, which is, if you want your ships to be canon, that's okay. That's fine. That's whatever. But I see a lot of stories that kind of just read like bad fan fiction that give this kind of stuff a bad name when it doesn't deserve it. So, like, there are lots of really good and interesting bi characters and relationships out there. And then you compare it to, like, Tinian Batman writing Ghostmaker as Bruce's, like, won't admit it gay ex-boyfriend. And it just feels kind of fanficky and bad. Like, he just really wanted to write this ship and couldn't get away with it. And so you point that out to someone, and it reads like, see, this is the problem with doing this, is that everything just becomes your personal fanfic. And that's not true, and most of it doesn't. But when it happens, and when all anyone can focus on is the shipping, it gets kind of tedious. Like, I don't think Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy should be bi just so we can ship them with each other all the time.
I mean, I think
limited.
Like, it's a ship that works with Harley and Ivy because you have, like, someone that Harley can be with and will not be abusive toward her, but also isn't going to, like, force her to suddenly be a good person. So, like, there is legitimately a good story there, is a good dynamic. I think the Harley Quinn show delivered on it just about as perfectly as I could hope for. But yeah, no, you're right. It can get, like, tedious when characters are changing orientation in order to fulfill a ship. And it can get kind of toxic as fuck when you do it, and then you get the really weird ones, and it's like, for years people were shipping all of the Robins together in different dynamics, and it's just it
gets pretty, and I mean, I don't want to limit this to, like, issues of like queer representation. I just think it's one of those things because it's a oppressed minority community. They get hit with it harder because it comes out more in negative ways. But this is like an internet shipping community thing. Like Melinda Zuko, who shows up in the new Nightwing run, and has turned out to be Nightwing's sister. After the latest issue, people are shipping them together. And
man, those fucking those fucking stepbrother videos have really kind of corrupted people, haven't they?
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's like the internet is terrible for shipping anyway. You either like guilt someone over a ship because you're a terrible person and nothing better to do, or you make your entire identity around wanting two fictional characters to get together. And this kind of issue just gets stuck in the middle of it somehow, and I just don't know why or how.
Yeah.
I just don't get incest ships. It's fucking weird to me. I don't get incest at all. Let me rework that point. Incest is bad. People should stop.
That's a hot take, man.
Spicy take.
It's one of those things. I've never like ship whatever you want to ship. I don't think that what you ship in your fiction has really any bearing on your quality as a person, despite what a lot of like people who are very anti shipping in general, but that's a whole other thing. But it's weird how much shipping culture can impact the actual medium that these characters are coming from, and how much it can bleed into it in both positive and negative ways. I mean, I think that like Harley and Ivy, you get that episode of animated series, and their chemistry is like, it's honestly really incredible. Like, they have great chemistry, they just work well together, and then the community has just take that and run with that for years. And I think that that's one of those things where it's like, no, they make a lot of sense together. It's the same thing with like Poe Dameron and Finn. Like, that was something where Oscar Isaac was legitimately playing towards that. Like, that was what Oscar had in mind, and the fan community saw that chemistry and saw those two together in that way, and it's honestly disappointing that didn't happen. So like there's kind of positive and negative sides to it, but it's funny how much people will say that like Ghostmaker and Batman have this like mean exes dynamic, and then I'll like read an issue and I was like, oh shit, yeah, you're right, they do. Like, that is strange. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Alfie, it's time for you to say some wise British words that perfectly sum up everything that we've discussed today.
A lot of pressure.
Yep.
Be gay, do crimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Alrighty. Well, all right. I guess that'll do it for this episode, since I think we're pretty spent on this one. I'm pretty happy with the bases we covered on this. I could use more support in the having respect for me and my standards regarding clogs, but you know, it's fine. Whose turn would it be for next week to do a review topic?
I believe it is my turn.
Yay!
Alright, review topic. Let's review... This might help your algorithms. Let's do it this. Let's review the 2021 comic book superhero movie, The Suicide Squad, written and directed by James Gunn.
Oh,
Awesome.
I have to watch
Sounds
that
good.
movie again.
Oh man. Spoilers. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the gay erotica lover, yeah.
The champion of the oppressed and leading a team of the gays.
Yes!
I'm just along for the ride.
Alrighty, and we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.